What's up, college football fans and Mean Green fans? Sonoy Valente here once again with the Mean Green Show. Today, joined by Matthew Brune, making his return to North Texas athletics covering and whatnot. And before we get into all of that, guys, you already know the drill. If you're a fan of college football, G5 football, any or all of the above, consider hitting that like and subscribe button. All right, Matthew, I got to ask you real quick, man. So you and Colin, you're back in the UNT podcast YouTube world, and again, asking you here, is that just is that just the mean green in you guys? Like, we can't let this go. Like, this is we're two best. We got to cover. This is our school. Like, yeah, I know you're at LSU and Colin's doing other things, but at the end of the day, this is your alma mater, and you keep pulling the rope. But will you kind of let us know like what led to that and how's that going?
Yeah, well, we saw you getting all the traction, and we were like, we got to take this away. We can't let Sonoy dominate the North Texas media conglomerate. So, but yeah, we just obviously wanted to get back into it. Colin kind of took last year off a bit, and so with John taking the DRC job, John Fields taking the DRC job, and I was like, Colin, let's load it up. Let's get back into it. Obviously, we want to rebrand it to kind of make it a little bit more, me and him instead of Brune's breakdown. We changed it to the green room, and Colin's great at design and everything, so he made a nice cover image for that. And I think we just have enough chemistry to where when we jump on there, it's kind of just like we're just talking. It's not the most formal podcast ever. We try to have fun with it, and I think we have enough knowledge, enough connections that it's I think it's going to be really good. We've done 3 podcasts now, and on one of them we were like, why is Katie Davis leaving? And then the next one is, why is Katie Davis back? So there you go. Thank you, Katie Davis, for the content.
Yeah, Katie Davis gave us all a bunch of content. On mine, he was like 3 or 4 thumbnails, a little picture you put on the video,
Yeah.
like in the span of like 3 or 4 days, and that's never happened on my end.
And you got
But
him on the podcast, so there you
yeah,
go.
yeah, he
You
was
did
on
it.
it. Yeah, he was real transparent, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. But anyway, guys, that's called the Green Room. I'm gonna do my best to link the description below for Matthew and Colin's new podcast, as well as on YouTube. And they've got a lot of big guests coming up here for the summer, I believe. And I won't leak any names, but you definitely want to be subscribed there, and you don't want to miss it. It's really good stuff. But all right, Matthew. Okay, so one of the most important questions is, now that you cover LSU, and who has the nicer indoor facility, UNT or LSU?
North Texas is newer, so you have that going for it, and so
Okay.
it's actually kind of comparable when you look at it from that
Okay.
angle. Now LSU's feels just like massive. I don't know how to describe it. Like, it's one football field, but it's like feels huge for some reason. North Texas is big, but yeah, I don't know if I can decide on that one. That's a close one. I just started North Texas podcast, and now you're asking me to compare North Texas and
Yeah.
LSU.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's really fair, Sonoy.
All right. Well, I guess it's fair to say that North Texas and LSU are pretty much neck and neck as far as a facilities race go. That's what I
That's
got.
exactly what I just said. Yes, there you go.
Yeah.
That's correct. That is correct.
All right, man. Well, so kind of jumping into it, man, and I want to preface this. I want to hear your thoughts on. We're going to talk about the schedule, and it's early. It's July 1st, but it's the athletic year now. It's July 1st as we're filming this. I'll probably get this out on a Monday. I don't know what date that'll be, but anyway. So I want to get your thoughts on the schedule, A, and then B and C. But B, I also want to ask your opinions on this UTEP game, and then of course we'll get into some quarterback talk as well. But let's first, again, as we're doing this is July 1st, so this is your July 1st prediction, subject to change, I'm sure, reservations. What do you think UNT is going to? How do you think they're going to end the year record wise?
July 1st prediction. So let's go through the schedule real
Let's go
quickly.
through it.
You have UTEP week 0, which was kind of shuffled around a bit after every teams came and went in.
And we'll dive into that game specifically. But yeah, yes. Anyway, sorry.
So UTEP, who's obviously getting better. SMU, Texas Southern, UNLV, Memphis. That's the 4 non-conference games. You hope you can go 2-2 in that at the very least. Then you get FAU, La Tech, and UTSA. Tough stretch of games there. 2, 4. Okay, I'm doing the math in my head.
Yeah.
And then you go Western, FIU, UAB, Rice as to close out the year. And Western is obviously loses Bailey Zappi, but should still be pretty good. UAB, even though they lost Bill Clark, should be pretty good still. I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4. Is there only 4 gimme wins here? Right? 4 like
Yeah, I
guaranteed
think.
wins. And that's
Yeah.
assuming FIU and Rice.
Yeah.
So FIU, Rice, UNLV, Texas Southern, 4 gimme wins, and then you go from there, and it's like, okay, they should beat UTEP. You could throw a 5 in there, and then after that, you're gonna have to beat some people, right? You're gonna have to beat an FAU. You're gonna have to beat a La Tech. You're gonna have to. Both those games are at home as well, right? So that gets you to maybe 6 or 7. I think looking at this team, and so when you look at the schedule, it's one thing. The schedule will tell you one record. I think the roster will tell you a record in itself, right? And I think it comes back to the quarterback play, which is always what we're going to talk about a lot because they just can't find a quarterback after Mason Fine. But when I look at the roster, to me, it looks like a 6-6 team. It looks like a 7-6, 7-5, 6-6 team. And so that's around the range that I'm sticking with. I'm debating which one I want to go with right now, 6 or 7 wins. Obviously you lose the Murphy brothers. That hurts. I need to see Phil Bennett without the Murphy brothers, I think, to really feel good about this. But I'd say 6-6 right now at this moment, 6-6. And that's without, I just two quarterback questions,
Yeah.
defense questions. Like I've heard great things about Tom Trebe, a defensive end, but I need to see it. And the defensive backs, I need to see it. Receivers, hell, Tommy, I feel good about, the receiver room, but like Bush and Shorter missed last year. You have some new faces there, Jay Macklin and whatnot. So yeah, I'm gonna stick with 6-6 at the moment, even though on paper I think they might be pushing 7, closer to
Mhm.
7.
And I don't know if this is a half, the glass half full or empty, the statement I'm about to make, and I don't have the stats up, and this is kind of off the cuff, but I believe this is just common knowledge. So we're UNT offensively anyway, returning the starting quarterback, returning your lead rusher, all 3 of them essentially. I don't know who was the lead, but
And
we're
adding
returning them,
Oscar Adaway, yeah.
getting Oscar Adaway back in that running back room, returning your leading receiver. I think that was Roderick Burns. I don't know, but
It was, yeah.
regardless, we're returning our leading receiver, returning most of our offensive line. You know, so glass half full. Uh, that shit. Wow, we're returning a lot of guys. We could really have a go, and we really might. We might. Glass half empty is we're returning all these guys, and we're still like, oh, we might get 6. Like I
Well,
don't.
the thing is, it was basically 2 seasons last year, right? It was the first 6 games of the year, and it was the last 6 games of the year. And so do you want to say the last 6 games of the year was them finally figuring it out? Like them figuring out, all right, we don't have a great quarterback, so we're going to have to run the ball effectively. We're going to have to get stops. We're going to have to bring pressure. Like, is that Phil Bennett figuring it out? Or is that just the schedule getting way easier and the confidence getting up and them kind of going from there? I think it's a little bit of both, maybe. So if you want to say that, and I think it's perfectly fair to look at it and be like, okay, if they can just get average quarterback play, every other position on the offensive line, like literally, is quarterback the worst position on this offense? Because I feel pretty good about the offensive line.
Mm,
And I
yeah.
feel pretty good about, tight end Jake Roberts. I feel good about the receivers, running back. Like quarterback is the one big question mark. Unfortunately, quarterback is the most important position. So it's like, all right, if they can just get average quarterback play, I feel pretty solid about the offense. And then defensively, again, you lose the Murphy brothers, who were a lot of what you want to do last year. Good, and they have plenty of bad with them as well. But the pressuring the quarterback and winning at the line of scrimmage was kind of what you did last year, right? It was Deion Noville, Rod Brown, and the Murphys. So without them and without Deion Noville, I just need to see Phil Bennett's defense either in another light or with some different personnel. Like that's what I need to see. So I feel better about the offense this year. And the defense kind of has to prove it to me at this point.
Gotcha. Okay, so kind of coming back to the schedule, at least the first quarter of it, and especially this UTEP game. So as we know, UTEP UNT fans, and you've covered UNT for a few years now. UNT always starts off with a warm up game with an FCS, and that was going to be the case, I believe, until Southern Miss and company left and just shuffled everything. Now we have UTEP week 0 at UTEP. It's going to be 1,000,000 degrees. I've heard it's like close to being sold out. Like that's what I've seen on
Yeah, I've seen
Twitter.
UTEP people, yeah, get up
Yeah.
there.
So that's, I mean, UTEP is coming off a historic season for that. Would they 6 wins and a bowl appearance or something like that?
Worldwide,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, really great for UTEP, and the city's behind him. And anyway, so go to UTEP, question mark there, right? Then SMU comes to North Texas, probably a loss for being real.
Mhm.
Then Texas Southern, that should be a win. And then at UNLV, very winnable game. Okay.
Yes.
Uh, so do you think as fans, we were putting too much stock into UTEP? I feel like UTEP might be one of the biggest games of the season just because you beat UTEP and then you take care of business the next 3 weeks, wins the games you're supposed to win with Texas Southern and UNLV. Then you go to at Memphis at 3-1. Not to say that I'm thinking you could pull off a win at Memphis, but if you're 3-1, that's momentum, that's confidence, swagger, this, that, and the other. And then maybe you can get one at FAU, and then maybe at La Tech, and those two are maybes, and then obviously a big challenge with UTSA. But how important do you think it is? Like, let's say, let me ask you 2 hypotheticals.
Okay.
Hypothetically, we win at UTEP, and that sets us up at 3-1. Do you feel pretty confident that we can maybe get to that 7? On the flip side of that coin, we don't come away with a win at UTEP. Are you looking more at like, okay, we try to win 4 or 5? Yeah, if you can
Yeah,
kind of take
that's
it.
I agree. I think that's pretty much it. You have to beat UTEP if you want to win 7 or more games. Like that's it to me. Like you can't lose to UTEP. And while UTEP, I looked at, they went 7-6 last year. I mean, we knew they were good, but like it's not like they're going to overwhelm you with talent. North Texas should be the more talented team against UTEP, as they are most years. Like you should be able to win that game. And so if you win that game and you start the year 3-1, you give yourself some wiggle room, right? You don't have to beat La Tech and FAU. You just have to beat one of them. But if you lose to UTEP, you probably have to beat both of them. And you're gonna have to steal a win on the road against Western Kentucky if you lose to UTEP. Like you're gonna have to win these games that you are going to be very, very difficult to win. And so I think you have to beat UTEP if you want to get to that 7-win mark. When I just went through and did the schedule, I said there were 4 gimme wins, and then that's where you have to throw in the UTEP, the FAU, and La Tech. I think those 3, and maybe like Western Kentucky. So of those 4, you have to win 3 of those to get to 7. So it's where do you find those wins at? And that's going to be the interesting thing to me is that UTEP game, like you said, they usually start the season with an FCS opponent, and we don't really learn anything from that, except maybe like I think it was what 2 or 3 years ago. I think it was the 2019 season or the 2018 season. No, 2019 season, where they started off the season and they beat, who was it? It wasn't Abilene Christian. I was somebody, but they allowed like 24 points or something like that.
Mhm,
And Colin and I were like, it's a little concerning. And yeah, the defense ended up being awful that year.
mhm.
And but so yeah, anyways, you usually don't learn anything from the FCS opponents. I think for UTEP, starting off week 1, we'll actually learn something about this team, which I'm interested in.
Okay, so let's go to quarterback, controversy battle and whatever you want to call it. All right, so obviously, I don't know if you spoke with John or anything, but I was at the spring game myself, and truthfully, and I know we're all harsh on Ani, I am too, but that was the best I've probably ever seen Ani, and he was, looked like he had that instant connection with Jay Macklin and everything, and when I mean, it looked best I've seen Austin Ani. I'll just put it that way. And again, I know it's spring, it's not exactly real, but whatever. It looked
Yeah,
better than
no,
last spring when I saw Austin. So second to him was Stone Earl. Stone Earl, in my opinion, anyway, he looked solid too. I mean, just he looked a step behind Ani, but he looked pretty solid. And that was his first action as a Mean Green quarterback. Now you bring Grant Gunnell into the equation. Probably has the most impressive resume as far as productivity at the highest level, and some freak injuries that happen. His coach Coach Someone got fired at Arizona, which
Yeah.
transferred to which led his transfer to Memphis, where the freak injury happened. Now he's good. He's back here. Biggest thing, though, in my opinion, you miss spring ball. We saw that with Jay Schroeder last year. I think they kind of force fed him the starting spot, and I just feel like that's really hard to get an offense down in summer. I know people are, you got Zoom, you got this, that, and the other. And we just talked about how important that UTEP game is. Like, you don't really have a game to figure it out. Like, if
Yeah.
I feel like if you feel like Austin's your guy, then you got to roll. And I feel like it would be if you grow with Grant Gunnell and it sputters, and then you have to turn back to Austin Aune at some point in the season. That has been the same song since Mason Fine, you know. But maybe kind of best worst case scenario, you stay with Aune, who's on his last year, and maybe he gets momentum like we just talked about, or maybe he doesn't. But then you can maybe switch to Grant Gunnell or Earl or Reuter or someone, and they can kind of come in and be the the savior instead of Austin. I'm going to be the savior. I don't know, and I'm going to turn this over to you. I really want to hear the ins and outs of all your opinions on this, and they may vary from mine. But my biggest thing is, you just that UTEP game is so crucial, and Austin Aune is 2-0 against UTEP the last 2 years. So I mean,
Yeah. I
he's
would
got their
venture
number.
to say 2 years ago, Jalen Darden
Jalen Darden, yeah.
beat UTEP.
Yeah, he did. He sure did. I made a
But
comment last year, something like, "Oh, Ani had X amount of yards, like 300, 400, but 300 of them were to Jalen Darden." So,
that game was crazy.
yeah, but he pulled it
All right,
off
well,
again. But anyway, turning it to you, tell me, what do you think about this the quarterback situation, and as it pertains to UTEP? I know that's a mouthful, but you take
okay.
that and run with it.
Here, I'll make this quick. I'll flip it to you back. I'll flip it back to you. Why do you think they added Grant Gunnell?
Oh, here we go. That's a great question. Okay, and I'm gonna try to make the okay.
Go ahead.
I
Make it
kind of
quick.
feel, I do kind of feel like I see. I don't know. I mean, they added the other two, Head and Earl, and then I don't want to say it's because they don't like what they saw in those two. I personally think they added Grant Gunnell because he hit the portal late, and it's just like, wow, that kind of caliber guy is there. We can't pass on him. Let's get him. I think that's why they got him. Possibly though, they think that he could be better than Ani sooner than later.
Yeah. So okay. I asked that because going into this, I was just like, I still maintain, and this is just me from I'm now at an outsider perspective, right? I'm not covering the team on a day-to-day basis like I was doing. So I definitely have a different perspective now than I did then. And so now I look at it as Austin Aune, in theory, should be the starting quarterback, right? He got most of the first team reps from what I heard in the spring. Like, he was the guy throughout the spring, and he's been the guy the past 2 years, so you kind of know what you have from him. And I've made this comparison a lot on podcasts, whether it was with John or with Colin. It feels like Seth Luttrell and company are addicted to buying scratch off tickets. That's what it feels like when that's what you're doing with these quarterbacks, and you just keep shuffling in these transfers that maybe one of them will hit, maybe one of them will give you like $20 and you pay for your dinner. That's just what it feels like. And that's Grant Gunnell feels like a bigger ticket, right? So
Mhm.
that's what they're rolling on. But I agree with you. You go into that UTEP game, and this is a big year for Seth Luttrell, which we've talked about before. You can't lose that UTEP game. You can't. You can't lose the UTEP game. So I think you have to roll with Austin Aune at this point, if nothing else, for continuity's sake. That gives you the best chance to win. Do I think Austin Aune is going to make a big jump from 52% completion percentage to like 62? No, and I think that they think that as well, right? Because if they thought Austin Aune actually had a shot here of taking a big jump forward, big leap forward, I don't know if you bring in Grant Gunnell. They didn't recruit a freshman quarterback. There's not a true freshman quarterback. I don't know which of these 4 or 5 is the youngest. I would assume Earl or Head, considering Gunnell, Reuter, and Ani have obviously been around the block. But they didn't recruit a freshman year, so you're putting a lot of eggs into the basket of experienced quarterbacks. One of them has to hit. And while I think you look at the other 4 and you're like, okay, these guys all have really good upside, Austin Aune is the only one that you can be like, okay, well, the bottom shouldn't fall out with Ani on the
Mhm.
field, right? And I
Highest
say
floor,
that
right?
yeah, I say that even though Austin Aune last year, with Austin Aune at quarterback last year, they literally could not throw the ball. Like, do you remember watching the last year and just being like, they have no ability to throw the ball down the field? And obviously, some of that's the receivers getting hurt, and they didn't have, Rod Burn was their best receiver, for God's sakes. So it's like, I don't know. I just think you kind of have to stick with Ani at this point. But them bringing in Ganell tells me it's like the upside just isn't there. Like the ceiling just isn't high enough with Austin Ani.
Yeah, yeah. And one thing, you know, not trying to come to too much of a defense of Austinani, but
No, go ahead.
he with the Jason Bean year, it was 1A,
That was
1B,
a weird
and
year.
yeah, weird year. I mean, well, that was weird. And then Jace Reuter kind of different but similar. I mean, Ani had to regain, that starting spot, and I,
So the
unless
hope, and you mentioned this. So the hope is that you give Ani the job, and you 100% instill confidence in him, and you're like, this is your team here, and he, for the first time in his career, is the starter from front to end. He can improve, right,
yeah, I
as the season goes
guess.
on. That's the hope, right?
Yeah, I guess so. It
I
sounds, yeah,
agree. I
yeah.
agree. But then why bring in Grant Gunnell? It's like,
Yeah, there you
what are you doing
go.
here? Why add to this? Like, I don't know. I don't know. So
You're
that's
gonna
why
have to get Latrell back
it
on
just doesn't
here or
make a ton of
something.
sense.
Yeah, and get to the bottom of it. But yeah, I don't know that it's perplexing. It's crazy. I did see Gannell play in high school.
Oh, he was
My
good.
nephew played against him at St. Pius, and my nephew was all whatever. He was really really good, man. I mean, really really like he looked like an SEC quarterback, truthfully, in high school anyway. But not that he went to SEC, but I'm just saying that he just looked like that
Yeah.
caliber. If you would have told me he was back in those days before NIL was a thing, if he was a Tennessee guy, I would have, oh yeah, I see that.
Mm.
Anywho, so okay, last question as it pertains to this, maybe for the last one for the pod here, but so we've kind of talked about what we think. I think go with Ani, just default to whoever, Gunnell, Earl, whoever. But who do you logically think is going to walk out as a starter? If you had to put a bet against UTEP, do you think you're going to see that 6'7" Grant Gunnell, who is a monster specimen? Are they going to really keep him on the bench behind Austin Ani, who went 52% complete, like you just pointed out? Or are we going to see Austin Ani? Who do you logically think? Why did they bring Grant Gunnell here? What is your bet? If you had to hedge a bet right now, who's going to start against UTEP?
Who's gonna start against UTEP? Man,
This is July 1st. No
if
fall camps whispers
if
out
they
yet.
if they I'll say I will. Okay, I'll start off with this. I think I think it's gonna be Austin Ani. I think it's gonna be Austin Ani. With that being said, obviously last year I was a big proponent of Jace Reuter before the season, and
Same.
I stand by that because I'm not saying that he was better. I'm not saying they should have played him because obviously he was not good, but the thought process made sense, and the thought process is the same one that you have with Grant that I have with Grant Cannell right now. It's like you don't bring these guys in if you think Austin On is the answer. Jace Reuter and Grant Gunnell obviously have higher upsides, and this is a team that needs the quarterback to, at least be capable of throwing the ball down the field. And Austin Aune at times wasn't even able to do that. So um, I think in theory, you'd want Grant Gunnell to be the quarterback just because you'd be like, okay, we actually have a quarterback that gives us a chance to win and can compete with some of these other top players, like an SMU or like a Memphis. Like you can compete at those levels. Um, and I just don't know if Austin can do that. But
Yeah.
however, against UTEP, I think you just want a guy that knows the offense and you can complete a pass a little, like, just keep it simple,
Yeah.
basically. So not screwed up too much, but Austin Ani, I think I'm also kind of underrating just how much he struggled last year. So if there's not a simple answer here, but I think Austin Ani is the one I would go with to start against UTEP. At least I think that's who I think Seth's gonna do start. But man, this just makes I could go on and on about this quarterback room. Why you have 5 scholarship quarterbacks? None of them are freshmen. Like Jace Reuter's entering his 4th year, and he's played like 3 games. Like Grant Gunnell, obviously, I'm cool with that pickup in theory, but you already have 4 other starting quarterbacks. Stone Earl and JD Head transferring here doesn't make a ton of sense for me from their perspectives. And obviously, like you said, like Sonero had a fine spring camp, so maybe he's actually more in the competition than I'm giving him credit for. But like, I don't know. Seth the Judge loves accumulating quarterbacks, loves buying scratch off cards, and so here we are.
Yeah. Man, that'd be quite the little saga though if UNT did go to Memphis 3-1 with Grant Gunnell at the starting quarterback. That could be a little revenge tour,
Yeah,
potentially attempt. But anyway,
yeah.
but we'll see, man. We'll see. Anyway, Matthew, I'm going to cut us off there. Anything crucial that we missed that you can think of?
No, no, we're good. We're good. We'll keep it at 25 minutes. I think that's good.
Okay.
Good
Yeah, it's
time.
pretty short for us,
Yeah,
but
yeah. We can
that's
talk forever.
good. All right. Well, once again, guys, that's the Green Room. I'm going to put the link in the description. Really subscribe. I mean, there's going to be a lot of good stuff this summer, and you really don't want to miss it. But Matthew, thank you again. Take care, and we'll talk soon.
For sure, man. Anytime.